All right, hello. Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of Bloomerang TV. I'm Stephen Shattuck. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Bloomerang. And today I'm really excited to be joined by Rachel Muir. She is the VP of Training over at Pursuant. Hey there, Rachel. How's it going?
Hi there. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome for you to be here. Wow, you've had a nonprofit background since you were in your early 20s, in addition to your gig at Pursuant. Maybe you could talk a little bit about your early history of starting your own nonprofit and a little bit what you do at Pursuant now.
Perfect. I started a nonprofit organization called Girl Start to empower girls in math, science, engineering, and technology in the living room of my apartment when I was 26 years old with $500 and a credit card. And I started Girl Start because I was always really discouraged in math and science when I was growing up, and I got the message that being a girl, I was missing some kind of a math gene, and I was just naturally not good at math. And I missed out on a lot of opportunities in my life because of that. My hometown is Austin, Texas, and we were having a complete technology revolution, and girls were completely being left out of the equation. So I started Girl Start to inspire girls and increase their confidence in math, science, engineering, and technology. And it grew from an idea to a $1.5 million organization. We raised over $10 million and successfully empowered hundreds of thousands of girls. Girl Start still exists. It's a great organization, and I was proud to start it and run it for 12 years.
You were even featured on Oprah, right? That was a big part of the growth.
Yes. Yeah. 3 years after starting Girl Start, we were featured on Oprah, and we had the honor of winning Oprah's Use Your Life Award, which was a $100,000 grant, and we used that to really expand Girl Start and grow Girl Start and grow Girl Start to other cities and kind of put Girl Start in a box so that other girls in other communities could get empowered in math, science, engineering, and technology.
So what about Pursuant? What do you do from a day-to-day basis there? I know you do a lot of blogging and writing. And you're VP of Training there. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that organization.
Absolutely. Pursuant is a full-service fundraising agency, and our mission is redefining fundraising. We have clients from all over, and we help them with everything from online marketing to major gifts to mid-level gifts to capital campaigns. And what I have the pleasure of doing at Pursuant Group is serving as Vice President of Training. So I get to train nonprofit professionals and help transform them into confident, successful fundraisers. I absolutely love helping people increase their confidence going into making an ask and increase their success with their strategy and their overall fundraising programs. And that's what I get to do at Pursuant. I do classroom trainings, and I also do custom trainings where I go to an organization and work directly with them on site with their staff and even sometimes their board of directors as well.
Cool. And I know a lot of those trainings focus on major gifts, and major gifts obviously is a hot topic, a really important issue. Maybe we could talk a little bit about that and focus on that today. You know, what can a group who maybe doesn't have a small gifts program or a focus do to get that started? What advice and coaching would you give to an organization like that?
Sure, absolutely. I would tell anyone who is looking at starting a major gifts program is really start with who knows you already. I tell people shop in your own closet. Start with the donors who are already giving to you and really look at who they are and what's happening with those donors. So what I would recommend as like a step-by-step guide is for an organization to pull a list of all of their donors. Pick a $1 amount. Maybe for an organization, if that organization defines a major gift as $1,000 or $5,000, maybe they want to start there. But I would recommend that they pick an amount cumulative, because you may have a donor who's actually giving to you pretty significantly when you look at it from a cumulative amount. But if you just looked at their individual gifts, they might not hit your radar. So pick your dollar amount, whether it's $1,000 or $5,000 cumulative. And run a report of donors who might be giving to you for the past 3 years. And what you want to be looking at is what we call in the industry RFM, or recency, frequency, and monetary value. And another way of looking at that is who are your largest gifts, who are your most loyal gifts, who's continuing to give to you over time. Maybe they're giving the same amount, or but they're giving to you very steadily over time, and you might not notice it because it's a smaller amount. And then who's upgrading the gifts, who is increasing their gifts to you over time. So I recommend starting with that. It can be really distracting for folks to look at, and a lot of times as fundraisers, we have so many things competing for our attention. There's so many bright, shiny toys that we can be looking at and get distracted by. I mean, the opportunities are really endless. But if you just look at your file, look at those patterns of your gifts, and then you can start to analyze who should be in my portfolio. From running that and looking at that recency and frequency and monetary value, that can help you determine who should be in your portfolio, who you should start with to build this program.
Okay, so you go through your data, you make some good decisions, you put that list together. You know, what do you do next? Do you just go down the list and call people and ask them out for coffee? You know, what's that step to actually start that asking process?
Absolutely. The next step is you really want to know how well do you know these donors that you pulled this list from? You know, do you know what they care about? Do you know why they gave to your organization? Do you know why they're passionate about your organization? Why they're passionate about philanthropy? The more you know about your donors, the better you can position your ask. The better the more you know how much to ask for, the more you know what to ask for. That all comes from really intimately knowing your donors well. So what I recommend people do is look at that list and ask yourself, how well do I know these donors? Do I need to find out more? If you're new in your organization, and I would consider new being if you've been in your position for 12 months or less, you can really play the new card with those donors and contact them. And I do recommend contacting them, and you can contact them through mail, you can contact them through phone calls, you can definitely ask for a visit, and really get to know them. With every touch point that you have with your donor, you want to be extremely thoughtful and extremely intentional. You know, when you're on a flight and you see those ads in the magazine, in the in-flight magazine that say it's just lunch. Well, it's not just lunch. Every minute with that donor is a really strategic opportunity for you to get to know them and their interests. And it really starts with, why did you choose us? You know, what made you give to us? What are you passionate about? The more you can position your programs to them based on their interests, the more successful you'll be. There's a lot of really great free tools that are out there for you to find out more about your donors as well. I would tell anyone, start with setting up a Google alert for the donors that you have in your file. That way, anytime something happens with them, you're notified about it. I also recommend adding them to your network on LinkedIn, and I would write something more than just the automatic pre-filled script that LinkedIn gives you. Write something personal to them, but adding them in your network at LinkedIn is really, really helpful, because then you'll be notified of any changes if they change jobs, which is something you really want to know about. If they've added a new project they've worked on or something significant, you'll be notified. It's also a great tool for seeing who else is in their network, and you having a segue and an introduction to that. Twitter, of course, following someone on Twitter. I recommend liking their company on Facebook so that you get instant updates on anything that's happening with their company, a new product launch, or anything else. Pinterest is a really great tool as well. I mean, it's extremely revealing in terms of you understanding more about your donors' interests. All these things about our donors, I mean, little things like where their kids go to school, if their kids are getting ready to graduate, what their summer plans are, all these things can give us a lot of insight into their preferences and their interests that help us deepen our relationship with them and connect them more to our cause.
It seems like knowing all this stuff about them can really inform the decision of not just where they focus their money, but how much, right? Figuring out how much to ask for seems like a really tricky subject. You know, if someone asks me for a major gift to me is going to be a different dollar amount than maybe Jay Love, who's at a different point in his financial life. So how can you kind of decide what that dollar amount is? How do you go about learning that?
That's a great question. And what I love about that question, first off is that you ask specifically what dollar amount, because that's the first step. I would coach anyone doing face-to-face fundraising, getting started out in face-to-face fundraising. You want to be specific. You want to have a specific dollar amount that you know is appropriate for this donor. So yeah, so right, like for you and for Jay, you're at different life stages. You have a young child, your focus and your disposable income is much different than someone who's older and whose kids are grown up and out of college. And so paying attention to our donors' life stages is certainly important. We want to go in with a specific ask amount for any face-to-face fundraising visit. And there's some information, of course, there are paid tools that you can use, tools like Wealth Engine, that will actually screen your donors for capacity and give you more insight into their giving, how much they're giving, what their income is, what their assets are. They'll give them a rating. But you can also use just some basic measurable guideposts and markers. So, of course, knowing what that person's title is at their job and where they work, you can look up what their income is on salary.com so that you can have a sense. Americans typically give 2 to 3% of their income to charity. So that could be a really good marker for if I was going to be asking you, Stephen, for a first-time gift. I would be looking at what your income is, and I might just go with that of like what a certain percentage of your income. If I were going to be asking you if you've been giving to me pretty generously, if I pulled you in my file and I'd seen that you've been very loyal and you've been upgrading your giving, and I wanted to target you for a major gift for our organization, that's going to be larger. A major gift is going to be about anywhere from 10 to 20 times what your annual gift might be.
Okay.
So that's a good marker as well. So if you've got a donor and their first gift is $50 and they make $100,000 a year, then asking them for a $1,000 gift is a good strategy going in. But if they've been giving $1,000 steadily and you're going to ask them for a major gift, then you might ask them for $10,000 as a major gift. All this information and insight that we have about you, what we think your income might be, what we know about you personally, if you've got a child that you're sending to college, that you're saving to send to college, if your kids are out of the house, all of these things can definitely influence and make a big impact. If we know about your other gifts to charity, maybe I know that you've just made a really significant multi-year stretch gift to another organization's capital campaign. That might help inform me going into an ask with you that I might be prepared to split up my ask over time, and maybe ask you to give more of the gift in the second year or the third year when you finished out that other pledge.
I like you making that distinction between the amount of the annual gift, because it opens the door to almost everyone in your database, right? It seems like when people talk about major gifts, it has to be $1 million gift or above, right? It has to be to fund a building, and you're only going to be able to talk to maybe people who are a little older, who are wealthy, but you could really ask anyone for a major gift if you've cultivated them, right? You can ask a 30-year-old just the same as you could ask a 70-year-old, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love it that you brought this up. I mean, we have a few different terms, and a lot of times in fundraising, you see this pyramid of giving, right? And at the bottom of the pyramid are like your annual fund gifts. And those are gifts that are like under $1,000. And then in the middle of the pyramid are your mid-level gifts. And those for an organization might be anywhere from $1,000. Let's say the organization considers $10,000 a major gift. Those mid-level gifts would be anything from like $1,000 to $10,000. And then a major gift being anything over $10,000. So people might start out with a year-end $50 gift. Those are all really great targets to move up to a mid-level gift to ultimately turn into a major gift. And we've done some really interesting research on this at Pursuant Group, because we've found some really interesting facts about mid-level giving. And probably the most obvious one is that pyramid that I just showed. People see lots of examples of this pyramid. They might see it at a training that they go to or at a conference. People just assume, oh, well, my giving looks like this and my file looks like this, because you
Right.
never see something that, you never see a different but at Pursuant, we actually refer to it that it looks more like a sombrero, where you've got a lot of donors giving at the bottom, and then you've got donors giving at the top. But we don't have a lot of mid-level donors typically, and kind of like Jan Brady, the middle child can be ignored,
Right.
and the fascinating thing that we see at Pursuant is that the middle isn't ignored because of our donors' behavior. The middle is kept empty because of our actions. We don't often do enough to identify those donors giving at lower amounts and what their capacity is to give at higher amounts. If we just identified them and we just gave them the appropriate cultivation and appropriate personalization. And as you said, the appropriate ask, because what we've seen at Pursuant is a lot of those donors, those mid-level donors, will give a generous first gift on the first ask. It's really just a matter of plucking them out of your file and learning more about them, taking the time to learn more about them and their interests, and start them on a cultivation path to get to know you and your organization.
That's good. I'm 30 years old, and my wife and I have given to organizations for a number of years, regularly, and we've never been asked for a major gift. And I feel like if somebody asked us, we would definitely consider it. Your advice is good, because maybe people are a little, wary to ask that age group or that level of the pyramid, and they might be surprised if they actually do it. So that's really good advice. All right, so everyone's gonna, you're gonna follow your advice, all these awesome things you just suggested. They're at lunch or coffee, a nice lunch, and they ask, and the donor says yes. Then what happens? What happens next? Do you just, do you dance up and down? Do you ask them to get their checkbook right there at the table? Like, what's the actual procedure after you've gotten that successful ask completed?
Absolutely. Well, whether it's successful or not, the same procedure really I recommend for everyone, and that is 2 words: thank you. Even if that donor said, I can't make that gift right now, Stephen, I'm completely tapped out, I can't do that, you can still say thank you for responding to my request, or thank you for considering my request. So the very first words out of your mouth are thank you. And if they've agreed to give your gift in full, this is absolutely a time for rejoicing. And not just in that moment, but when you go back to the office as well. I really encourage folks to have your CEO call the donor and thank them, have a board member call the donor and thank them. This is really a time for rejoicing. And don't stop after you've gotten the gift, because knowing their gift made a difference is our donor's return on investment. And having tangible knowledge of how their gift is changing lives, that's what makes them want to give again. So I encourage folks to have a revenue goal and a cultivation plan for every donor in their case level. Like, after you've pulled that file and you've analyzed your donors' giving and you've learned more about their interests, put them in an Excel spreadsheet and decide on how much you want to ask them for and when you want to make that ask, so that you know and you can see that you've got some planned steps to cultivate them over time. When people do get a no, it's typically for like 1 of 4 reasons. Either the timing wasn't right, the amount wasn't right, it wasn't the right project, or the 4th reason could be that it wasn't the right person that asked them for money. Maybe they wanted to be asked by a board member, or maybe they wanted their spouse to be present with them. Maybe their spouse makes giving decisions with them. Maybe they want their child present. They want to introduce their child to philanthropy. I once had a donor who wanted her child present for the ask. So I would tell anyone who got a no, and anyone who's afraid of getting a no, we all get no's. It takes no's to get to a yes. And no's are really your friend, because the great thing about a no is that it tells you what you need to fix in order to get to the yes. And if it's a matter of the timing or the amount, that can easily be addressed with splitting their gift up over time. Maybe you ask them for $10,000 and they can't do that. That feels too much, but they could do 5 this year and 5 next year. or maybe they've got a big pledge they're paying out this year, and they could make 2,000 this year and 8,000 next year. So timing and amount are something that you can negotiate. Of course, if it's the program or if it's the person, then that's going to be another visit where you're going to need to correct those things. But those are just opportunities. Those are really your friend, and those are just opportunities for you to get it right the next time. If maybe you ask someone to give to a breast cancer ward, and you really thought that was what they cared about at the hospital, but since then their nephew's been born and he was born prematurely, and now the NICU seems like a better gift for them. These things can happen. Or I've had cases where I found out early on in the cultivation cycle that the person I was cultivating made giving decisions with their spouse, and that was good to know, because and that's a great question to ask when you're asking these centers about their interests, to ask, how do you make giving decisions at your household? Do you have your own budget and your partner has their budget? Or do you commingle your budgets and make decisions together? Are there other people in your family that you want involved in your philanthropic decisions? These are all completely respectful and appropriate questions to ask.
Cool. Well, this is great. We're about out of time. I feel like, Rachel, you and I could talk about this all day, and we actually have before, which is fine. But yeah, I do want to give you the last word and let people know where they can find out more about you, where they can follow you online, for your advice.
Great. Yeah, Pursuant.com, and our Twitter handle is @Pursuant. My Twitter handle is @RachelMuir, M-U-I-R. I really encourage anybody listening to check out our website. I've got trainings that I do every month, and we've got some fantastic white papers on a lot of the topics that we talked about today, specifically about managing a major gifts portfolio, and we've also got a really fantastic white paper on mid-level giving. So anyone who wants to learn a little bit more about those topics, I encourage them to visit Pursuant.com and also come to a training, because spending a whole day is a great opportunity for you to really transform yourself as a fundraiser and take your confidence and your skills to the next level to bring even more success to your organization.
Cool. Definitely do all that, and we'll link to everything that Rachel mentioned here on the post where this video is. So as soon as you're done watching, click to all that stuff. Follow Rachel on Twitter. You definitely will not regret it, I promise. So Rachel, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for hanging out with us for 20 minutes or so, and thanks to everyone who was watching and listening at home. We will catch you next week. Talk to you then. Thanks Rachel.
Thanks.